So, this is my review on the book Ensnare by Rebecca Quinn. It is described as a uh, post apocalyptic BDSM reverse harem erotic novel. A lot of descriptors there. You kind of need that when you're dealing with like erotica, you need the descriptors in there. But it is about a a librarian named Eden who is who has been spending a lot like she's living in a post-apocalyptic world where there's a great war 4 years ago, and she's been living in a cave since then. She gets like scared out of her cave by some they're described as hunters, but general kind of like post-apocalyptic bad guys. And then she kind of runs straight into the arms of a different group of armed post-apocalyptic guys, but these turn out to be good guys, and they take her back to their base, which is a mansion called Bristlebrook, and meet the other crew there. This is where we get kind of our reverse harem part of it. So they got all the guys there, and in it, they make her kind of make an agreement with her to be like, oh, you can stay and we can protect you, but you kind of gotta be all of our girlfriends. So that's like the setup. That's what the blurb promised in it. First thing with the descriptors, like, 'cause I felt like I was going to. This novel was a lot different from kind of what I expected going into it. I mean, part of that's just like I haven't read one of these in a long time. I'm not up on the current state of these kind of like, Kindle Unlimited romance slash erotic novels that are like all the rage right now. I read like a lot of old school books, like the Legend of Gore books, and like some romance novels my grandma had, or like I read a lot of fan fiction, like in the early aughts when that was on there. And so like that's like kind of the stuff I'm used to, and this was, a little different from that. And then also like I felt it was like the descriptors were a little off. Like I said, it was described as a post-apocalyptic BDSM reverse harem erotic novel, and like it doesn't quite hit all those, or it hits them in like ways that are like a little bit like maybe not to my taste or my liking. But so you got the BDSM part of it, and there's like they don't quite hit all the letters. A lot of S&M in there, very, very big on the power dynamics thing. That's like a huge thing with the author and throughout the novel and with all the characters. Like this kind of like, the girl is Eden. She's in this thing. She's got 5 guys who are like sharing her as like their like sub pet, like kind of use a couple different descriptors for it, but basically like their shared girlfriend. And they're very big on power dynamics. Like of all the like the guys, like most of them are like, I think all of them are like really big into power dynamics, and this is like kind of something that Eden's not expecting. So it's like a lot of her trying to get her role. So they're very big on roles. So they got like the S and the M part down, like very big on that. A little bit of the D in there, pun intended, in more ways than one. But like the BDSM, they got that part's in it. Not as big of a thing, but that's definitely a thing, especially with a couple of the guys. Despite having like plenty of opportunity, I thought, to do so, and like talking about it quite a bit, but like there's no actual like beat in there at all. Like nobody gets tied up, nobody gets restrained, nobody really gets captured or imprisoned like that really. So it's like there's not really any of that in there, and that's kind of like, no, that's something I like. That's something I would have liked to have seen in there. So, would not, a little disappointed on that end, especially if you're describing yourself as a BDSM book. Like you could have described it as an S&M book. That's just a separate tag. People know. You'd have been fine. That's clearly what it's the author felt was more important / what she wanted to put in her story. But just, no B in there, and that's that's just disappointing. Like I'd have liked to have had some of that in there. That would have been made the experience better for me personally. So they got the other descriptor, which is post-apocalyptic, and they, I also feel like they didn't hit this because, like, it is in a post-apocalyptic world. It is post-Great War, they describe it as, that lasted, and it's 4 years post, so pretty fresh. One of the things I did think they did really well with, like, the post-apocalyptic setting is they didn't over-explain it. Like, that's, like, kind of the thing that, like, kills most, like, post-apocalyptic fiction is when you try to over-explain, like, why everything went to shit. Because it's, like, really kind of hard, especially in, like, a modern setting of, like, hey, how did society completely collapse, but, like, we didn't all die in a nuclear holocaust? Like, that's, like, a weird balance to do, and, like, most of the really good ones just kind of brush past that. Like, the least interesting part of a post-apocalyptic fiction is the actual apocalypse. And now that we are post it, then we got some interesting dynamics going on. So they did good on that. Like, they just described it very briefly, like did a pretty good job of being, like, vague, but getting a little details and not over-explaining stuff, because these are all people who are in, like, a post-apocalyptic, like, thing. They went through the apocalypse. They don't need to talk about it because it's probably traumatic, and, like, they all know what happened. There's not, like, somebody wasn't frozen in time or whatever, and you got to explain to them, like, oh, how did the apocalypse happen? Like, they know. So we're past that. So that was nice. I liked that. I didn't really get, like, surviving in the post-apocalyptic wasteland kind of vibes from it, because they really don't do any of that. Like, they start you start with Eden, like, in her cave, and she gets booted out of her cave, and, like, that's, like, her, like, living in the post-apocalypse in the woods, a lot of survival things, and then she gets, like, whisked away to a mansion. Like, it's a literal mansion that's, like, concealed in a cliff. It's kind of has, like, every amenity. It's like disgustingly, like, well equipped, and they, like, talk about how, like, oh, we're, like, resources are scarce, we actually have to maintain, like, it's nice, but we have to, like, maintain it a lot, and, like, we put a lot of work in there, but they don't really, like nobody suffers, nobody has to make, like, rough decisions about, like, lack of resources or, like, stuff like that, which I think is kind of a big part of post-apocalyptic, like, fiction. Nobody really has to make compromises on that end. They live in a, like comically well-equipped, like, mansion that has, like, not a lot of problems. And I think, like, the washing machine breaks, and that's, like, the big, like, environmental conflict for them for, like, a while, other than, like, the interpersonal conflicts that obviously happen. But, like, so that was, like, I feel like, I didn't really, like, feel like it's the apocalypse, like, for most of the book. Like, they eventually, like, the outside, like, they have to, like, protect the home, protect the thing from the outside forces, and that's, like, okay, that's kind of what you're building towards. But, like, I didn't feel like the setting, other than it's kind of, like, ups the rags to riches aspect of it, because Eden comes in and she's like, oh, it's all these things I haven't had since the beginning of the war, and, like, kind of adds to, like, that kind of trope of, like, the, like, downtrodden person coming into, like, luxury. So it's like a frame for that, but, like, other than that, they don't really use the post-apocalyptic setting, like, at all. And it's kind of disappointing to me, because I really like post-apocalyptic and survival fiction, and it really wasn't that. So that was kind of another thing of like, or another thing that I like and that I was kind of hoping would be there and then wasn't. Yeah, they got the then there's the reverse harem part, which yeah, this is a reverse harem, and there are 5 guys and 1 girl, and I like that it was actually a reverse harem. You get a lot of things that say, "Oh, this is a harem or reverse harem type story," but what they really mean is that there is a gender imbalance in the story. There are more of one gender than the other gender, and that's what makes that. And that's not really what makes like a harem or reverse harem story. It's all about like the one person who is like whoever is the smaller of the group of gender is like going around and meeting all of the other people of the opposite gender and kind of like either falling in love with all of them in her own way, or like picking one of them, or just like, you know, getting to know these people. It's like a harem or reverse harem story is all about like the person meeting all these other people and forming relationships with it. And this does that in this. That's what this is all about. So it's like I appreciate that, because a lot of places use that kind of like tag wrong. So I'm really happy that that tag was used correctly, because yeah, this is a reverse harem. It is one girl, Eden, and she is getting to know her captors, or you know, however you want to phrase it. They start off with the term captors, and then it kind of just like they're very, very clear that they're not her captors, and it's like, and she's free to leave whenever she wants, and they're very, very respectful of her and her boundaries most of the time. And that's just, you know, like again, like that's just another thing that goes back to kind of what I thought it would be and really wasn't, but that's fine. Like it's perfectly well like structure for something like this. And you know, when you're doing a like reverse harem, it is very important that you have good characters in it. Like the people in your harem or reverse harem need to be like interesting, like or it sucks. Like you can't have these like people be like really boring or shitty, because that ruins the fantasy. The fantasy is that you are the person with all these options, and that you can kind of self-insert and like, you know, pick your favorites. And so like if you're, you know, if all your options are boring and shitty, then that's bad. You did a bad reverse harem. So like we're going through the guys, like there's 5 of them, and there's Lucky. And Lucky, I think, is my favorite. He's up there if he's not. He's probably the guy I'm the closest to out of them, like attitudes and stuff, and kind of probably how I would like react to a lot of situations, or the way that Lucky reacts to those situations. So he's fun and funny, and like he's got a little bit of that overwrought thing that you get in these things, where it's like he has just like one too many like super cool, interesting details about himself, and that, you know, that kind of like takes me out of it, because he kind of gets like a guy like a little too, like I think they tried to make him a little too quirky on some stuff, of giving him like a little too many quirky details, but like that's fine. In general, my favorite guy seems cool. Then there's Jacob, which is spelled incorrectly, but I'm not going to go over that. But he's kind of like a dark, he's like asshole with a heart of gold type, which I really like his portrayal, because I feel like he's an asshole with a heart of gold, like they are in real life. So like you get fiction, it's a lot of this like, oh, they're this hard, like, outer shell of asshole, but once you break in there, once you get past their, like, defenses, they're really like a normal, gooey, chill person on the inside. And from my experience, like, people like that in real life aren't like people who are those kind of that trope of, like, they're real assholes, but, like, there's good parts to them, and, like, you can kind of get to know them. Like, they're not like that. There's no shell to get past. It's all kind of intertwined with each other, and I feel like that rarely translates to fiction, or at least with a lot of characters. So I really appreciate that Jacob is like that. So he's really abrasive, like, from the moment, really crude, like not tactful at all. And as Eden, like, gets to know him, and we get a little bit of his inner monologue in some chapters too, you get to know it's like, okay, he's not just awful all the way down. He's got some protective instincts. He's got some of this and that. He's got interests and hobbies. And he's like, he is a complete person. And he, like, all the characters have tons of trauma, because you need to have that for, like, the, to make the interesting. Also, they went through the post-apocalypse. You're gonna get some trauma. That's pretty expected. But, like, he's got, and so it's like, oh, but it's not like, oh, he had bad things happen to him, and that's why he's an asshole, and he's really just this really nice, cuddly guy underneath that you need to get to. And it's like, no, it's not that. He's an asshole, and he's an asshole all the way down, but there's good parts to him. And I like that. I like that portrayal, because I feel like that's a lot more true to life with that type of person. You got Dominic, aka Dom. First thing off, really on the nose to name a character who describes himself as a dominant and is really into power play and S&M stuff, and you call him Dom. Like, that's, a little on the nose. Whatever. I also like Dom. Dom is, like, the like silent leader type guy, the really serious. I like that. He feels like that, and he could feel like, but I feel like the author did a really good job of, like, why would Eden find this person attractive? Because I feel like there's a lot of times where it's like, oh, the cool, serious, gruff leader, but it's like they kind of expect you on your own to be like, oh yeah, he's the leader, he's cool, he's cool, but, like, why is he cool? Why is that guy cool? And the author does a good job with Dom. It makes it like, okay, this guy is attractive because of these reasons. I mean, I should also state that all these guys are described as being, like, tall and fit and gorgeous in, like, 100 different ways. So it's like, I mean, that probably helped. Like, Eden, like, saying, oh, I'm attracted to this guy because he's gorgeous. But it's like, also, like, yeah, it's like they do a good job of just being like, yeah, Dom's, like, a hard ass, but he's, like, really good at this, and this, and, like, these are why, and really good job of kind of showing that throughout the novel. So, like, Dom's, like, one of those guys who's like, oh, he's this or that, and then it's like towards the end he is like, I'm like, I get him, I understand him by then. So that's good job on that. Then there is Jasper. Jasper is a name that I associate with, like, an old Southern man, and Jasper in this book is a older psychologist, like, super well-read, aloof Korean man. So not what I would expect the name Jasper for, but I guess that's just my prejudices coming to light on that, of like, oh, it needs to be an old man from the South and not this psychologist guy. Jasper's a vampire. Like, not a real vampire. He's not, like, in the universe, he is not, like, the mythical creature, a vampire, but he is, like, a vampire. He fits that, like, harem role of, like, he's super aloof, he's older, he's described as having, like, this, like, really ageless kind of beauty that's like fine but also masculine and like all this stuff, and he kind of acts like a vampire. Like he's a vampire, like for all intents and purposes, and like he sucks. Like Jasper sucks. I hate him. He's he's described as like, oh, he's this like aloof. He's so deep and has so many like so stoic but deep and has all these. He's so intelligent and all these things, and he's a psychologist, and he sucks. He's really shitty. He's really shitty with every interaction. Like, for he's like, oh, I'm a professional empath with like good with words. Like I'm good with like I'm a psychologist. Like, no, you suck. You talk everything bad. Every decision you make is bad. He sucks. I have no love for him. And he also like he's shitty throughout the novel to my boy Lucky. So like again, you know, don't like him. I did think it was kind of funny that so he's got the stoic, serious, but like really watchful and intense like vibe. But the author, she was kind of you clearly tell she's like running out of descriptors of how to say that. So I cannot tell you how many fucking times Jasper in the book is like described as like he had a quiet face, but he had an intense, inquisitive light behind his eyes, or like something to that. It's just all the same. And it's either he's either like really aloof and quiet and observant, or he's just tired and cranky. He has two modes, and they both kind of suck. And like he does a lot of like, oh, he's got like a really tragic backstory, and like part of it is like, oh, he's like getting over his stuff by like, doing this or that, and I didn't like it. We got Bew, who's at the end like charming southern doctor. Also did not like Bew, and it's not like Jasper where it's like, oh, he's a fucking asshole all the time, and I also don't like this archetype. It's like Bew's like just I don't know. I don't think that the author quite nailed, at least for me, what was trying to get at that, which is like, oh, he's like the gentleman and the doctor, but he's got like a dark side to him, and it just kind of came off as like, I don't know, maybe we didn't do enough on the front end of like him being the charming southern guy, but it felt to me like that was fake and he was an asshole underneath the whole time. And I feel like I can't imagine that is what the author was going for. I guess I'm pretty sure she meant to be like, oh, he's like this charming like southern gentleman, but also like he can get naughty sometimes too, and he's got like a real thing into it. It just seems like the way they wrote him like makes him feel like a pickup artist. Like he's like, I am trying to say all these nice things to this woman so she will sleep with me, and that's like the vibe I got from Bew, and I don't think that's what they're going. We'll mention that Bew and Dom's relationship in the book was like, I liked it. I think it was pretty cool. I think it was like pretty unique. Like you don't see they basically are like two guys who are like really like super inseparably close, and they used to be in like a like kind of like a I don't know, a pairing where they would date the same person at the same time, like a throuple is like designed. Like they were like really close friends to each other, and they would like, be with like another like woman. It's kind of like add to a threesome, like a throuple type thing, and I like that. Like that's not a thing I see a lot. In fact, I think the only thing I remember reading that had like this specific dynamic was a really terrible Oliver Stone movie called Savages, which never watched Savages. It's terrible, but they did have that dynamic in it, which was like, oh, that's like not a thing you see in fiction a lot. Like, and there, because it usually when you get that, it's like, oh, they're a threesome, but it's like they're either like poly, like that stuff. They're like they're together, and then they're adding a third person, which these guys are very much not together, like romantically, but like partners in romance with another person, and like that's cool. You don't see that a lot. Um, oh, I also forgot to mention it when we got to it, but like Lucky is a bisexual man and very much like bi, and I like that. Like you tend to get bi men in fiction where it's like they're really straight or they're gay with like a little bit with like one or two things in there. Like not to say like that's like you know what I mean. Like it's always a sexuality spectrum, and very much there are people real life who are very close to all the way one way, but have like a little bit in there. But like you know what I mean. Like how people are like, and then they throw it in there to make them like more interesting. And this felt more genuine to me. Like felt really more like a bi guy, and they're very stuff. So like good on the author on that. I like that. I guess we could go to our girl Eden in this. Eden, I don't know. Like, I feel like she's supposed to be a blank. Harem fiction. You kind of want to like be the main. The reader wants to be the main character in that. You want to self-insert, so you kind of gotta steamroll some like some opinions and stuff in there to let the reader self-insert. And maybe that's a little bit what's going on in here, but like I found her like not very interesting. She's like got like a backstory that I appreciate because it's like kind of, I don't know, it's a little different. Like I like that. It's very like real. I've heard people who are also been in that situation before with like really shitty relationships that kind of fizzle out because people are shitty. It's like I appreciate that. Appreciate her bringing some baggage into shit. But like she's like supposed to be like this really mousy, like librarian, quiet, demeanored person, and like really smart, but like she's kind of acts the opposite of that. Like she's acts really impulsively all the time. She makes really bad, like stupid decisions, like several times in the book where you're like, why? Like this, like I understand there's a lot of dynamics things where she's like, oh, I'm trying to like move against the grain because I need to break out of this dynamic that's going on because I don't really like how things are going, renegotiate my own terms. But a lot of it's just like you're being like really inconsiderate and like really like brazen with your own life in a lot of this stuff. And it's just like like you're supposed to be smart, and I understand that like book smart and like applied smarts and decision making are very different things, but like she's also like a big thing of her character is like, I'm not just book smart, I spent 4 years in the woods defending myself and hiding and learning all these skills so I can help out, I can do stuff, and then it's just like she makes all of these decisions that I'm like, yeah, if I was like in the situation the dudes are, you wouldn't be earning my trust with any of these moves. And like, it kind of comes to a head where she like, due to happenstance or just plot convenience, like some of these shitty decisions work out because they have to, for like, otherwise it's just like, they would just, I don't know, I would kick her out of the place. But like that, I also feel like she's like really like, oh, I should mention like about the book smart thing. She's this librarian who like super intelligent lady, doesn't know what chess is, like doesn't even know the basics. And it's like I don't know, maybe that's just me being like, I don't know, smart people know chess, like maybe that's just a stereotype I have, but it feels like most people know how to play chess, and if they don't, it's like not the bookish people, but like whatever, like that might be some of my own prejudices against like smart people coming into play there. Speaking of decision making, all of the guys are supposed to be, with the exception of one, Jasper is not a soldier, but the other four are soldiers. And I feel like their portrayal as soldiers is just like not very good. Like maybe I read too many Tom Clancy novels when I was a kid, or like, I watched too much fiction with soldiers, but it's like, oh no, like, they make like a lot of decisions that like a trained soldier shouldn't. And like these aren't just soldiers, they're described as like army rangers, and they're like given like this thing of like, oh, these aren't just like soldiers, these are like the soldiers, like the elite units, and they're just like, I mean, they kill a lot of guys, and it's like that's like how they're shown they're competent is like, oh yeah, like whenever we get in a firefight, we kill like 20 of them and like none of our guys die. So like we're really good at this, but it's like makes some really baffling decisions. There's one, like the last one that Dom makes at the end, which sets up the cliffhanger. Like, I don't know if you finished, I don't want to spoil things, but there's a cliffhanger at the end, and it's set up by like a really bafflingly like dumb decision that Dom makes that seems really uncharacteristic of the rest of his portrayal in the book. And there's also like a couple of things in there where it's like they have twists that are set up that only are set up because like characters were negligent. And like they even mention in the book like, oh, how could we be so stupid? And I'm kind of like, yeah, like how could you be so stupid? Like you should have known better. Just not great decision making in there. Whatever. Not the point of it. The point of it is the sex scenes. There are 5 of them. 4 of them are really good. 1 is okay. And then there's like a weirdly erotic chess scene that, like, I shouldn't say weirdly because it's meant to be kind of that way, but like kind of like I don't know. I don't think chess is sexy, and I think there's like a whole bit in one of the Austin Power movies about how like chess isn't sexy and you shouldn't try to make chess sexy. So like I don't know. I will say that chess scene was a little weird because they had like a really like detailed like tracker of all of the moves that went on. Like literally every 2 sentences they would go out of their way to tell you what every single move was in this chess game. And I'm not like good enough at chess to know it without like plotting it out, but I wonder if like that chess game was actually like a good chess game, like a chess game that made sense for like what was going on. Like if that was like, yeah, kudos. That's like going above and beyond in that scene with the author. And I feel like it has to be like that because like you wouldn't add in every single chess move in a game if that game wouldn't make sense, because somebody's going to plug it in to like plug it in and figure out what that game is like. And like I feel like that'd be really dumb to do if you didn't think that out. So, I think that was fun. I say it's also like there's 5 sex scenes in it, but there's also like 400 pages, and I don't know if like my ratio on that is like off or whatever, because I'm used to reading like fan fiction, which is like comes out in chapters, and you kind of always got to add like a little bit of spice to it or people won't read the next chapter. So like to me it felt like, okay, this is like a lot of stuff that kind of like, I wouldn't say filler because it's clearly not intended to be filler. It's not wasting time, but it's kind of working against like what at least I was trying to get out of that. Like I understand there's a ton of relationship talk, which I know is appealing to people. So like I'm not gonna like shit all over that, because like you're making Aramis is a female author, and I assume this is like targeted towards a female audience, because I think most of the erotica is consumed by and made for females. So that's a big part of fiction for females, is like all the relationships, all the stuff around it, the longing, the build up, like all this stuff. But so I'm not going to shit on that. But like they had like a lot of firefights that were last firefight in the book really good. Rest of them not so good. A lot of like survivalist talk, like little stuff that just like I don't think worked as well. But like sex scenes were really good once again. I guess this is already like way too long because I have no ability to condense or like edit my thoughts on things. So I guess just kind of, a little grab bag at the end of just thoughts. Cover sucks. I noticed this is just kind of a trend with a lot of. I'm not going to like get on Rebecca for this because this is just like a thing that seems to be the standard for the genre. Like you get like a generic cover with like two objects on it. In this case, it is a golden apple and a little snake, because Eden is the name of the main character, and I can't really think of any other reason for that because I don't know. I guess like I don't know because I don't really think they play on those themes a lot. I guess like Bristlebrook is a paradise, and so she's entering it, but then it's like I don't know. A lot of I guess it's like they do, this kind of jumps into my next thing where it's like they do a really good job of like not saying, hey, all these men had all their shit together and the woman came in and messed everything up. They're very, very clear on like, hey, no, all these dudes were having all these emotional or interpersonal or just general problems, and then Eden came in and just was kind of a catalyst for stuff. So that was nice. I appreciate that little bit of going extra mile to be like, oh no, she's not wrecking shit. The shit was wrecked before she got there. But yeah, these covers, like, I don't know how hard, like, spend $100, get like a lot of starving artists out there, like pay $100 or $200 and have them draw you a nice cover. There's some good artists there who do commissions, like just have a cover that's not just two objects floating in a void. Like I think I don't know. I blame Twilight for that. I know they didn't probably start it, but that's like the first series of books I remember just seeing like, oh, two objects on a cover or one object in a black void and then the title, and it sucks. Just sucks. I don't know. Maybe it's like I'm expecting like the romance novel cover to me is Fabio holding some lady with like his hair blowing in the wind, and I don't know. But expectations were not met on that cover. Very, very small thing though. And I guess like there's another one coming out. Apparently, they ended on a cliffhanger, and that cliffhanger kind of sucks. It was set up bad. Like, sure, like I can see this leading to like, motivation for the characters to like get shit going in the second book, and like I don't know, it might actually lead to some stuff more of the situations that I was kind of hoping for and I like, but yeah, they set it up bad. It seemed like an afterthought to me. Like they either like they worked their way backwards from it. Like there's like, okay, this is how the book's gonna end, and they get there and they're like, oh, how do I get there? And they did some bullshit there, or they got to the end and they're like, oh, I need a cliffhanger so people buy my next thing. So I don't have any proof of that, but like how it is. Yeah, so this again ended up being way too long, so sorry about that. So if you watch the whole thing, good on you. You have no reason to, but yeah, that's the review.